Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Sophia, your host. Amidst the turmoil in the Middle East, an extremist group called the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria recently declared a caliphate, or new Islamic state, in eastern Syria and northern Iraq. The man who calls himself Caliph, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, is calling on Muslims worldwide to pledge allegiance to him, immigrate to the Islamic State, and arm themselves in jihad. The news is causing alarm amongst political and religious observers. Is ISIS acting in accordance with Islamic law? Can the caliphate be considered legitimate? And how should Muslims respond to the call of the Islamic State? Now, Dr. Shabir, all this talk of caliphate, someone watching the show might say, well, what is that? What is a caliphate? It's not a term that we hear bandied about in our times.
Yes, in traditional Islamic terms, this is a way of representing the leadership. Let me explain. The Arabic word khalifa can mean a vicegerent or a representative or a successor. Now, Abu Bakr was the first caliph of Islam. He was thought by Muslims to be the successor of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the next person to take over the reign of leadership after him. And so followed from him a line of successors, and it became traditional in Islamic terms to think of the leadership as a caliph, a successor.
So when was the last caliphate then?
The caliphate was officially rendered null in 1924 by Kemal Ataturk. But prior to that, the caliphate did exist, but perhaps did not have much of a power, an authority. Maybe it had been
sort of replaced by the nation state.
Yes, and relegated largely to a kind of symbolic role, almost like the Queen of England having a symbolic role, the monarchy having a symbolic leadership over Canada.
So how is the caliphate established then?
It can be established in a variety of ways. The question for Muslims after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was what do we do now? The Prophet Muhammad was the recipient of divine revelation. We cannot replace that, but he was also holding the reins of the state. Who will hold it now in his absence? And through some negotiations among Muslims, it eventually was settled that Abu Bakr will be the person to succeed the Prophet and lead. And nearing his death, Abu Bakr appointed Omar to be the next person in line, and Omar, nearing his death, appointed a committee of 6 persons who were each in their own right perhaps deserving of leadership or could serve as the caliph and would be accepted by Muslims. Eventually, Uthman was declared to be the next caliph, the third. And after him, Ali, who was one of the 6 already, then was acclaimed by many Muslims as the new caliph.
Now this group, the Islamic State, has kind of just come out and said, we are the new caliphate. How would Muslims respond to that?
Well, we would say that one does not just simply declare one's sheikh or one's leader to be the caliph and expect that all Muslims will rally to his call. If all Muslims rally to his call, then yes, he will become de facto the new caliph. But if Muslims do not rally to his call, then he might only be a leader within a small group, as he already is. His group may become wider as a result of his call, because some people may feel, let's rally to the caliph and maybe we have something new and exciting happening here, and perhaps the glory of Islam will come back once more, and we will all be happy as a result. Especially many young people will probably rally to his call, and that could be dangerous if they take that up as a call to arms, and they then pose a danger to fellow Muslims and to non-Muslims. But by and large, it does not seem to me that many Muslims will rally to his call.
Now, some people have, when speaking about this group, they have referred back to the caliphates of old. So I want to ask you, how similar is this group, the Islamic State, similar to or different to the caliphates of past?
Well, the caliphates of the past were very different one from another. Reading the manifesto of this group, one gets the idea that there is a single unified idea of what the caliphate is, and it was all days of glory. Whereas if you go back to the history of the caliphate, you see that in fact there was a lot of bloodshed and a lot of wrangling as to who would be the caliph at which point. And while I spoke about the caliphate being abolished in 1924, prior to that there wasn't a unified caliph for all time, for all people. Let me explain. Omar, as we said, was the second caliph, but he was murdered. And then Uthman was the third caliph, but he too was murdered. And Ali was the fourth caliph, and he too was murdered. So it's not like the modern democracy in which you have an election and 4 years later you elect somebody else and the president or prime minister. People go on with life after a presidency or after the leadership period expires. And there is a relative calm, and people have relative safety from all the wrangling and bloodshed and war. So that doesn't mean that the caliphate is a bad thing. It just means that there was a time when this is the way in which people elected their leaders. It was a democratic process, but an early form of democracy. It was a rudimentary form. So when Abu Bakr was proclaimed caliph by the people, it was by popular acclaim. First he was nominated, and then people came and pledged their allegiance to him, and their pledging of allegiance to him is a way of registering their votes. If they did not come to pledge allegiance, then it would mean that Abu Bakr does not have the popular vote, and he could not be caliph. Now, the murdering of the subsequent caliphs shows that the nature of the times were such that people acquired power by force, and sometimes had to hold on to it by force. And there were opposing powers that, if they acquired greater force, would come in and seize the power and become the new caliph by imposing themselves by military feat. And after Ali was proclaimed the fourth caliph by many Muslims, at the same time there was a good Muslim who was related to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he demanded justice in the murdering of his cousin Uthman. And Ali had other priorities as the new caliph. And because Muawiyah did not agree with Ali on his decision, Muawiyah set up his own leadership, a caliphate in Syria. So right here we have, within the lifetime of companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, which Muslims regard to be the golden age, you have a caliphate and a counter-caliphate. But it doesn't even end there, because upon Muawiyah's death, he appointed his son Yazid as the new caliph. And in Yazid's time, as many Muslims are dissatisfied to the extent that Abdullah ibn Zubair, a companion of the Prophet, set up a counter-caliphate in Mecca. And this then resulted in the clash of caliphates, and a war ensued in which the Kaaba, the sacred mosque in Mecca, was demolished. So
why do you think Muslims then, many Muslims in fact, are reminiscent, they dream of the resurrection of the caliphate. They want it to come back. Why do you think that's so?
Well, all Muslims, including myself, want to see that there is a flourishing of peace, there is harmony, there is goodwill among people, there is success, there is a development of science and technology, just like it was in the golden ages of Islam to which we look back.
I guess people sense that Muslims today are kind of in a lowered state. Some Muslims feel that Muslims are humiliated. They don't have that pride, that glory that they had in the past.
Yes, so this is largely due to the way in which people imagine what the success was due to. They think that the success of the Muslim nation and the honor and glory of the Muslim nation lies in holding military power, subduing other denominations.
Well, not just that, but also being united, right? United
as a Muslim body, and having all of the glorious things that we hear about from the pulpits as we are addressed on Fridays. So this stems from this kind of miscalculation or misdiagnosis of what really holds the key to Muslim success. We should recognize that life is dynamic and changing, and things don't remain the same all of the time, and power comes and goes. What is peculiar to the Muslim ummah or body or community is, first of all, Tawheed, the belief in one God. This is a very unique belief that we need to share with others. And in that lies our glory, that we have something that is so unique that we need to share this with others. The revelation of the Quran as a book from God, this is one of the things in which we should delight, that we have a message from God, a source of guidance, such that we're not lost like many others. Today, many people are left without guidance, and they are tossed between various alternatives, not knowing what to choose. But Muslims have this clear direction in life. But to think that the entire world body of Muslims will be united today under one caliph,
it's impractical.
This is impractical. It is a dream. It is nice to work towards such an ideal. But such an ideal is ever elusive and has been elusive for hundreds of years.
And probably if it ever comes about, we wouldn't be satisfied with it anyway.
Well,
because that sort of authoritarian rule, you know, it doesn't work in our time.
Yes, when Muslims think back about the glorious days of Islam, and they think, well, yes, we hear so much about the rightly guided caliphs. Let's bring the rightly guided caliphs back. Even at the time of the rightly guided caliphs, life was so different from some of the customs and mores that Muslims have become accustomed to now, that many Muslims would not accept a rule in the way in which rulership was conducted in ancient times. Let me give you a simple example. It is often mentioned in the life reports about Umar radiallahu an, that he would carry a whip, and if somebody asked him a question in the wrong way, he might lash the person. Now, we don't expect a ruler today to do this. I'm not saying that anything is wrong with Omar. He acted in the way that he acted in his day, in his time, according to the mores of people, the customs, what was acceptable at the time, and what was known to be good. He was a strong leader, and that's what strong leaders did. But what might a strong leader do today, and how might he respond to the people? That would be slightly different, and we have to be aware of this difference. So when we ask for the leadership to come back on the same lines in which it was in the past, we have to be aware of the difference that we enjoy in our present times. Yes, on the other hand, we don't want to go down the deep end and reject anything that is essential to Islamic faith, but we need to strike the balance between ancient and modern.
Dr. Shabir Ally, before we end, can you speak very briefly about the Islamic State and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi as well? How Islamic is what they're doing?
Well, to me, what they're doing is very un-Islamic. So you have already a state in that's governing the region, and nobody likes that state, the heavy-handedness, the oppression, and all of that. At the same time, there needs to be a way of opposing that state and bringing about justice for the people. What needs to be done is that other states need to step in, invoking the right to protect, and come in to help the oppressed people, and bring the oppressive government to justice. For individuals to take this up as a matter for themselves, this is really to have a civil war. And you already have that civil war then, and then within the rebellion there are various factions. If one faction just simply proclaims themselves to be the governing faction, then the others will oppose them, and then there is obviously going to be infighting among the factions. So this is no easy solution.
Well, they've already taken over large swaths of the territory. So, you know, they're already successful in some sense.
All the more power to them. And then how will that power be used? Now we are hearing reports and we're seeing from their manifesto that they want to implement the laws as they were implemented many hundreds of years ago in a way that would not fit the present situation. They, for example, rule against the person who opposes them, and according to their manifesto, you should split his head with bullets. Well, if that's the way you're going to deal with dissenters, then that throws up a red flag right away. It shows your policy to be one of violence, and that will not fit very well with our modern world. It does not fit with the Islamic faith, and Muslims will not accept this.
All right, thank you for that, Dr. Shabir Ally.
You're welcome.